The Arizona audit results are in, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there, what the mainstream media wants you to believe about this, and what actually happened with this. So strap yourselves in, and we will talk to you about that. In other news, Iran has possibly failed to honor a key nuclear agreement only days away from an inspection, so we will talk a bit about what that could mean, and given the fact that only the Daily Wire is talking about this, we'll also talk about whether or not this could be propaganda or whether this could be the real deal. In other news, Democrats are now saying that their $3.5 trillion spending bill is not going to cost any money. Well, I can tell you it's probably going to cost, well, I don't know, $3.5 trillion, but we will talk just a bit about what's going on with that. And let's see, what else are we doing here today? Oh, and Liz Cheney decided to go on 60 Minutes and suddenly say, "Oh, I was wrong to oppose gay marriage. Please vote for me again." It's going to be all this and more. Hey, do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, and of course I go ahead and get started and find out that there are a couple other things that I didn't put up on the top of the stack here that we do need to talk about as well. So I had to adjust that here while the title card was up, but we are ready to get started here. A little bit late because insomnia blows, and man, I just could not roll out once, when you're laying there and the alarm clock goes off at 5, but you're still looking at the ceiling at 1:30. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit low energy in the morning here, but I got myself a little bit of Bang in a glass, because you guys never do see the can here, because, well, I'm just gonna come around and say it. Bang isn't paying me, and if they were paying me, it would be in their can. Mind you, Quick Trip isn't paying me either, but it is what it is here. Anyway, let's get into it here today. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to. Arizona audit stuff, gun control stuff, Liz Cheney stuff, W stuff, just all kinds of stuff all over the place here on a Monday. Plus, we'll go over one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition and more. It's going to be all this and more here. But before we get started, head on over and check out the new website and my friends, of course, who will be transmitting from that new website here. Let me drop this just a little bit because this is really loud in my ears. Anyway, let's get up to this. So head on over and check out TurnSomePagesProductions.com or tsp-prod.com. You can go check out either the full length or the shortened length up anywhere. You can go check your browser here. It is just a starting soon page, but we're spending some time, we're spending some money, and we are going ahead and getting this started as best as we can here. So go ahead and check that out. Also go check out the Porch Boys, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the Already Conservative, and the Freckles and Brit Show, all of whom will be joining. Plus, once we get to launch, we will be adding a 7th show to this. I think most of you guys know who it is. I'm not going to say it until I actually get confirmation that they're going to be coming on. I've given them the invitation, though, but make sure you go and check out all those shows. Go check out, bookmark the website. Something cool is coming soon. And we do have a great web developer who can actually be contacted fairly quickly if something gets broken. I mean, this is not going to be like Freedom Scoop, which I've no issues, no qualms with Jake from Freedom Scoop. I have no issues with him at all at this point. Because he did put the fire under my ass to get something like this started and bring me together with some really, really cool people. So go and check that out. Also, I wanted to point out that we do have a GoFundMe right now to help cover some of the costs of getting this started here. Our web lady went ahead and got me a bill a quote as to what it's going to cost to get the website functional to where I want it to be. And I mean, it's not huge money, but you know, I'm a working class guy, and that's how we're building this as news by the working class for the working class. So we're looking for a little bit of help off of this here, so you can go check out the GoFundMe. I've got that up on the screen. And I can link that also in the chat for you guys here. We're looking to get about $2,000. That's a little bit over the quote that we were given, but that'll also give us a year of hosting on top of it. So let me get that up in the chat for you guys here. Oops, that's right. I can't do a right click over on the chat program because it's lame. But there, that is in the chat for you guys. If you want to help out, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm very looking forward to seeing how this goes and what happens with this. Also want to point out that Friday was our last day on Trovo. I still exist on Trovo. You can still go and find my channel. I decided to leave it up so that could still take up their server space, but no, we're not going to add any more content to there. That's taken off the restream. There is no more Trovo. So hopefully we see Ron over here on the regular side, and anybody else who viewed over on Trovo as well. I do hope that they'll all come back over and come and hang out with us over here. I think that would be cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this here. All right, starting with your finance for the day here. Looking in at the Dow. The Dow says 34,798 points. That is up 33.18 points, or 0.095%. Not even a tenth of a percent up, but just barely. And it was a wild ride throughout the day. It dropped, and then it went up, and then it dropped, and then it kind of held steady, and then it went up right towards the end of the day. So we'll talk just a bit about what was going on with that. Your Bitcoin is at $43,752 US and 80 US cents. It's coming back on the march. It's still holding for the most part steady, but it is starting to advance just a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit. So grab some of it while it's still on sale if you want it. I mean, if you don't want it, I mean, you could always put your investments into gold or stocks. Stocks always go up, right? You can always put your investment into those as well, but whichever you choose to, your Bitcoin is on sale right now. So if you have any interest in adding that to your portfolio, now is the time. Looking at your metal prices throughout the day, looks like your copper is back up on the rise. Steel is back up as well, but get those cans in because aluminum has taken the drop. It is still holding an average of 59 cents a pound. But that's where it was, and I think it went up over the weekend. So that's where it's at right now, is 59 cents a pound. Looking in at all your individual materials, looks like all of your coppers are up throughout this. Looks like almost all your steels are still coming back up except for shreddable and stainless. Aluminum siding is down. Clean aluminum and copper fins are up. Radiators are down. Cans are down. Sheet aluminum is down. And rims are up. Electric motors with copper are up. Ballasts are up. Lead is up. Batteries are up. Cats are up. So it's just aluminum that's heading on the retreat. So check your metals, see what you need to get in, and act appropriately. All right, let's see what IBD has to say for this morning. Dow Jones Futures pair gains, tech fall after market rally revives. Tesla FSD beta opens, from Ed Carson. So I've got a Z on either side because it looks like I got a Z in Instagram, which I'm going to run that up until it runs out. I think it's just cutting off at 40 minutes now. I don't think it's that it's erroring out. I think it's just stopping at 40 minutes because they used to have a time limit, then they didn't, and now it looks like they do again. And then I've got a Z also in the live chat over here. All right, this is from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures rose slightly Monday morning, but off morning highs, while S&P 500 futures turned lower and NASDAQ futures retreated. The stock market rally last week went nowhere fast. The major indices tumbled on Monday, but then roared back with a slew of leading stocks flashing buy signals. Bottom line, the stock market rally is back in a confirmed uptrend. Tesla broke out past a proper buy point on Friday. Tesla on Friday released FSD beta request button, letting full self-driving owners or subscribers opt in after a 7-day vetting period. On Saturday night, Tesla released FSD beta 10.1, its latest tweak to a driver assist software. Meanwhile, Microsoft, AMD, and Alphabet have rallied slightly from their 50-day and 10-week lines. AMD and Alphabet are potentially actionable here or with little more strength. Finally, Snapchat parent Snap broke out of its flat base on Friday after flashing early entry. Tesla, Microsoft, Google, and Snap are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft and Google are on IBD long-term leaders. Snap stock is on Swing Trader. Google stock and Snap are on the IBD 50. AMD and Google are on the IBD Big Cap 20. On your futures, the Dow futures rose 0.25% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures are actually down 0.1%. And NASDAQ 100 futures lost 0.5%. Futures weakened during the morning but are trying to steady. Crude oil prices climbed modestly, continuing their recent run. The 10-year Treasury yield rose slightly. China power curbs have hit big industrial operations. It's also reportedly affecting some Apple and Tesla suppliers, along with a variety of chip-related businesses. Apple and several chip stocks fell slightly. Airline booking trends improved last week. Bank of America said the latest glimmers of hope for the travel industry. American Airlines and other carriers rose slightly. German elections on Sunday showed no clear winner, with the center-left SPD just edging past the center-right CDU, but both fall short of a majority by far. They'll both try to form a government, presumably with the Greens and the free market FDP, but coalition talks could take months. The House plans to hold a series of votes this week. They include votes on bipartisan infrastructure bill, now scheduled for Thursday, as well as a continuing resolution to keep the government open past September 30th. There may be votes to advance, or at least show the appearance of progress, for a massive budget reconciliation, tax and spending bill, but it's not clear what will pass. Speaker Pelosi said the reconciliation bill will be below the $3.5 trillion originally proposed, but there's no agreement yet. So there are a lot of things moving. They need to get this bill done, otherwise Biden is pretty much a lame duck for the rest of his term, or at least up until midterms. Which, once again, I do believe this is something where they're going to come back out and try to use this for the midterms as they go, because that's what they go with here. So, and remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, let's grab one from investing.com just to round this out here. Dow and S&P 500 futures inch higher as banks and energy stocks jump. This comes to investing.com via Reuters. Futures tracking the Dow and the S&P 500 edged higher on Monday as investors pivoted towards economically sensitive sectors, with focus turning toward upcoming economic readings and ongoing talks over increased government spending. Oil majors ExxonMobil and Chevron rose 1.5% and 1.2% in pre-market trade, respectively tracking crude prices, while big lenders including JP Morgan, Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, and Bank of America gained about 0.8%. Industrials, 3M Company, and Caterpillar, which tend to benefit most from an economic rebound, also inched higher. Market participants moved into a value and cyclical stocks from tech-heavy growth names after the Federal Reserve last week indicated it could begin unwinding its bond buying program by as soon as November and may raise interest rates in 2022. Though monetary tightening is frequently seen as a drag on stocks, some investors view the Fed stance as a vote of confidence in the U.S. economy. No, it's we gotta stop this inflation, otherwise we're all gonna be out of fucking jobs. The S&P 500 Value Index is down 1.4% so far this month, but still outperforming its growth counterpart. Wall Street ended a turbulent week with slight increases on Friday, although the benchmark S&P 500 index was on track to break its 7-month winning streak on concerns related to higher potential corporate taxes and China's Evergrande default, and also, by the way, the fact that almost everybody struggles in September. Investors will now watch for a raft of economic indicators, including durable goods, orders, and the ISM Manufacturing Index this week, to gauge the pace of the recovery, as well as bipartisan talks over the raising of $28.4 trillion on the debt ceiling. The U.S. Congress faces a September 30th deadline to prevent a second partial government shutdown in 3 years, while a vote on the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill is scheduled for Thursday. Oh, this is going to get interesting, folks. So that's what we see coming up out of the markets. That's what we see coming up out of the stocks. Let's get into the big news of the day. Hey, look, Ron Helton found a different channel. Hi, Ron. All right, let's get into it. Let's start here. From 12 News, NBC, Verify, looking into some of the Arizona audit's claims. From Michael Dudna, 10 months after the 2020 presidential election, Arizona's partisan audit released its... I love how they're trying to discredit this right in the top paragraph. It's a partisan audit! Released its finding after counting more than 2 million ballots. Here are some of the top findings. And this is really interesting because, of course, now 12 News is going to come out and say, we're trying to verify this, so don't worry about what's going on with this. We'll tell you what it is that we want you to think. And this is the part of it that most of your big name news is coming from. Auditors found more votes for Biden. After counting millions of votes of physical ballots, auditors found the lead for President Biden actually increased over the official results. What does this mean? At the end of the day, the vote count means nothing. The vote count would not have been a basis for overturning the 2020 election, even if the results were reversed. Yes, that's correct, and that's been the big part of this. And I've been trying to get this across to the leftoids, especially, but also to the MAGA people that believe that once this is overturned, well, that means that Donald Trump is going to come down. He's going to ride down on a white Pegasus, and he's going to be taking over. No, there is no constitutional function for that. You can go and impeach Mr. Biden, but then Kamala takes over. There is no constitutional function to get this back over and make the Donald take over in mid-presidency. It just doesn't work that way. Unless, of course, you go on the long shot bid of he goes and runs for the House in Florida. Republicans win the House to go along with him. They name him Speaker of the House and then impeach and remove Biden and Harris at the same time. Which it would have to be at the same time, otherwise Harris has the chance to name a successor. And then the line of succession takes over from that. But no, otherwise there's no constitutional function to put the Donald back in. But what this did, and this we'll get into what they found and what 12 News is trying to discredit right now. But what this did do was this did point out where some of the weaknesses are. Some of the big problems are on this. So we don't see this for 2022 into the midterms and beyond, into 2024 and later on, to help shore this up so that they can't fortify the election, so they can't honk everything that's going on here. So no, there is no constitutional function to overturn this. There is none. Did the audit find fraudulent ballots? Officially, no. They described thousands of votes as questionable ballots. After reviewing the count of paper ballots, the audit report said that, in part, what has been found is both encouraging and revealing. On the positive side, there were no substantial differences between the hand counts of ballots provided and the official election canvass results for Maricopa County. This is an important finding because the paper ballots are the best evidence of voter intent, and there is no reliable evidence that the paper ballots were altered to any material degree. Most of the rest of the report focused on ballots they found as questionable, which included 17,000 plus duplicate ballots. The audit report began with a presentation that claimed there were 17,000 duplicate ballots. The audit also raised questions as to the legitimacy of signatures or lack thereof on certain ballots. First, duplicate ballots do not mean duplicate votes. Okay, what do they mean then? If they're duplicated, and they all got counted in the hand audit, then what does that mean? Because it sounds like duplicate votes for me, otherwise they wouldn't have been counted. These very issues were settled by the Arizona Supreme Court last year. The case found there was no evidence of misconduct, illegal votes, or that Biden did not receive the most votes in last year's election. The case looked into more than 25,000 duplicate ballots. Experts testified that those ballots with votes for more than one candidate, overseas ballots, and ballots that are damaged or otherwise cannot be machine tabulated. The same case also had experts from both sides look into signatures. Out of a sample number of ballots, neither expert found a single signature they identified as fraudulent. 23,000 mail-in ballots that voted from a prior address and 5,000 potential voters who voted in multiple counties. And that's what I want to focus on with that one right there, but let's look into what they're saying here. Experts said these claims are issues because cyber ninjas did not use proper data sets. Benny White helped analyze election data from the Arizona Republican Party for the last 14 years. He said the auditors used commercially available data set that was not complete. The entire report by the ninjas depends on an analysis of this commercial database that I just don't find credible. They depend on matching up voters by parts of names, maybe the same year, date of birth. White said that's just nonsense. The report acknowledged some of the shortcomings, saying in part, while the high-quality database sources were utilized to assemble these findings, some error is expected with these results. I don't know, dude. In an election that was separated by about 10,000 votes, and this is what we look at here, because 23,000 plus 5,000 is 28,000, plus 17,000 is 43,000. 43,000 votes that are in question right now. Which means if 10% of them come back and flip, because they either didn't count or you take that many votes away from Biden, if 20% of them, if a fifth of them just get thrown out, that throws the county back to Trump. But now if a tenth of them get flipped, that also turns the county back for Trump. And I'm not saying, and this is one of the big things, especially with the 5,000. 5,000 people who potentially voted in multiple counties, which means that they came up out of their home county, Pima County, whatever county Tucson is, or even out of state at some point. They've come up out of their county to come back and vote in Maricopa. That is enough right there. That by itself isn't enough, but still, that's enough to take a significant lead away from Biden. It wouldn't flip it, but that's enough to take a significant lead. And we are talking about a race a state that went by 10,000 votes. And if this is happening in Maricopa, where else is it happening? Tucson? Pima? Anywhere else in Arizona? I mean, are we seeing any more of this anywhere out there? Now, what the article won't tell you is that, well, no, they're not saying definitively that these are bad votes, these are fraudulent votes. No, they're not. But now they're getting sent up to the AG, who of course is not going to do a goddamn thing about them, and possibly could go up to a higher court at this point. And there again, this will not flip the election. As soon as Biden put his hand on the Bible and said, I swear to uphold the thing, man. What's my line again? As soon as he did that was it. He was the president, and there's no function to go back and install a different president, short of removing him from office and then having his vice president take over. He is the president at that point. But what this does is this gives the opportunity to see where the weaknesses are in this. The article also fails to mention that the vast majority of this, especially with the mail-in ballots, 23,000 to 5,000, 28,000 mail-in ballots that are called into question here. This might be enough to start to push lawmakers to say, okay, we got to outlaw this mail-in ballot thing because we have no way to verify this. We have no way to do this. We have no way to make this work the way that we think that we do. The way that we thought that we could do in 2020. This is about finding the weaknesses and making the laws to make sure that the weaknesses don't get exploited again. That's what this is about. Donald Trump will not come down before 2024 or 2025 if he manages to win, which once again we've got to take into account the fact that if Biden dies in office, that's going to be a real kicker against Trump, who is going to be the same age if he takes office again in 2024. But he's not going to come down on the white Pegasus, flying down and say, I'm going to save you from everybody here. It's just not going to happen. But that's what we're seeing coming out of this. But of course, now the entire narrative is
misinformation.
Oh, shut the fuck up!
Around this audit, such as this tweet from the President Trump's strategic advisor Boris.
Shut up, you. But yes, the news media just wants to say, "Oh, we found 300 more votes for Biden, so haha, we really did win this county." That's what they want you to focus on, and they did a very good job of making me focus on it too. Because that's all I heard up until yesterday. Alright, let's check 5 takeaways from Arizona's audit results from Reed Wilson. The Arizona Senate on Friday heard testimony from the firm it hired to conduct a so-called audit of more than Jesus fucking Christ, the linguistics. The linguistics of all of it, jeez. The so-called audit of more than 2 million votes cast in Maricopa County. It was an audit. They went to go find the weaknesses. Oh, I'm sorry. It didn't go and turn over the election like you said it was going to. They hand recounted the ballots that were available. Yes, they found the more votes for Biden than the Donald, but regardless of that. The latest in a cavalcade of election disinformation spread at the behest of former President Trump. The audit has cost the Arizona taxpayers and private donors millions of dollars, and even some Republicans who voted to authorize it in the first place began to raise concerns over its handling by cyber ninjas, the firm at the heart of the audit. They wasted nearly $6 million to tell us what we already know, meanwhile exacerbating an already unhealthy political environment. State Senator Paul Boyer, an audit opponent, told The Hill in a text message. Here are 5 takeaways from the report and the testimony delivered Friday before the state Senate, which underscored what were already the results of the election. President Biden won both Arizona and the Electoral College. 1. Maricopa count was correct. Well, yes, if you count the ballots available, yes, you are correct. Maricopa County was accurate. Let's see. The count raises more questions about cyber ninjas than Maricopa. About the misleading statistic, the information cyber ninjas include in its report showed that human error was present in its hand count. The Florida-based firm recounted ballots cast in both the race for president and the race for U.S. Senate seat, in which Democrat Mark Kelly ousted Martha McSally. If everything went according to plan, the same number of ballots should have been counted in both elections: ballot cast for the Democratic candidate, ballots cast for the Republican candidate, ballots cast for any third-party candidates, and the ballots that either did not record a vote, recorded too many votes, or recorded a write-in vote. The Maricopa County canvass count reflects that reality. It recorded 89,563 votes cast in both the presidential contest and the Senate contest, including 21,419 non-votes or write-ins as the presidential contest, and 40,964 votes or write-ins in the Senate contest. But the Cyber Ninjas count is different. The hand recount, a multi-step process, which included manual data entry from volunteers who were not professionally trained by election administrators, found 2,088,569 votes. So basically they lost 1,000 votes. Just shy of 1,000 votes. 994 for those of you keeping at home in the presidential contest, and 2,088,396 in the Senate race, a difference of 175 ballots. It's not a statistically massive difference, but it's a difference in its first data point. Cyber Ninja showed its count was marred by human error. The Cyber Ninjas report includes several recommended areas that the firm suggests warrant further scrutiny, broken down by level of severity: critical, high, medium, and unknown, or in its term, informational. The top priority, one that Trump seized on before the final report came out, is mail-in ballots cast from a voter's prior address. The Cyber Ninjas report suggests 23,344 ballots were cast by voters who no longer live at the address in which they're registered. Phantom voters, Trump said in a context-free statement released on Friday. The linguistics of this. And of course, now they go on to say conspiracy theory, reports won't mollify the election deniers. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the linguistics of this. Well, believe the fact that we got many we got many more votes here. Believe that, but don't believe what Cyber Ninjas is, because they are fraudulent and they're Florida based and they're horrifying. I gotta get up for just a half a second. Allergy season's kicking my ass again. Oh, I hate seasonal allergies with a passion. Oh, I hate them. All right. Anyway, yeah, there's so much linguistics that go on with this, and they're trying to push you into believing a certain narrative off of this. That what they found in the audit was bad, but look at this count over here. We won because they hand counted it. It's a bunch of bullshit, is all that it is. The mainstream media tried to paint this as something that it wasn't. And even the right-wing media tried to paint this as something that it wasn't. From the beginning, they tried to tell you, oh, well, Republicans are going to try to overturn the election to try to get Arizona. And they're going to try to get Trump installed before Biden's term is out. No, there is no mechanic for that. There is no mechanism to do that. There is no feasible way to make that happen. And I don't know why people don't understand that. Well, I do know why they don't understand that, because they don't look into researching the functionality of this. They just go by what the mainstream media tells them, especially if it fits their narrative. Oh, Republicans are conspiracy theorists and they think they can get Trump reinstalled. No. Well, okay, many of them do. I've met some MAGA people, and a lot of them do. Jesus Christ, are you fucking kidding me?
Audit, such as this tweet from the President Trump's strategic advisor, Boris...
Shut up, you. But that's where we sit off of this, and now it is on the legislature in Arizona to come out and figure out where the problems lie in this and what to do on the next step. To legislate what to do on the next step. That's where we're at right now. It's not about installing, it's not about changing the results. We have to hunker down and bear the brunt of the Biden economy. It's transitory. And then do better in 2024. That's all that we have to do. Alright, let's keep going here. Oh, another bizarre story here. Going back onto the Haitian thing. Rex Zane tweets out, evidence is piling up that Jason Miller organized a caravan of Haitian migrants from Brazil to create a border crisis that the GOP is talking about. Wouldn't it have been easier just to do something about the border issues while they could? Yes, that's an actual tweet. Rex Zane looked at this and said, yeah, I'm going to tweet that out. He actually tweeted that out and said, yeah, that's going to be a good idea. There are people out there that are talking about this like, oh, yeah, oh, no. And the thing that gets me is that the same people that are talking about this, that are saying bullshit like this, are the people that'll call the rest of us conspiracy theorists if we think, oh, well, mail-in ballot might have caused a problem in the 2020 election, in spite of the fact that it didn't. There was no fraud, and Biden is the most popular president in history, honk honk. This Rex Zane here will come out and call MAGA people conspiracy theorists because they want to see if there's a way they can shore up elections next time, so we don't have to have this problem again. And then he'll tweet something like this. But not only is it him, it's CNN. Former Trump advisor Jason Miller briefly detained in Brazil from Rodrigo Pedroso, Michael Warren, and Samantha Beach. And this is what they're coming in talking about with this too. So this article is from September 7th. It's from 20 days ago. But this is what they cited. And that's the end of the Instagram video. So we'll close that off here and we'll add that back up to Instagram. Yeah, I mean, they don't give me a, like, if it's a timeout thing, they used to give me a warning when they were about to time me out, but yeah, apparently they're not going to do that anymore. So Instagram is over. Welcome back, everybody who came over from the Instagram side. Yeah, this is the article they're citing here. It's Jason Miller was down in Brazil and he got detained, and now all of a sudden we have all these Haitian migrants at the border who, I guess the records show they started in Brazil. I don't know. Let's read. Jason Miller, a former senior advisor to Trump, said he was briefly detained and questioned by Brazilian authorities in the country's capital on Tuesday. Miller said that he was at the airport in Brasilia when he and members of his traveling party were questioned for 3 hours by authorities. Miller said on Twitter that he was in the country to attend the Conservative Political Action Conference there last week. We were not accused of any wrongdoing and told only that they wanted to talk, Miller said. We informed that we had nothing to say and were eventually released to fly back to the U.S. CNN asked the Brazilian government and the federal police why Miller and his traveling party were questioned, but they have yet to receive a response. Tuesday is Brazil's Independence Day. Scores gathered in protests in cities across the country, both in support of and in opposition to Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro faces a looming election court investigation, sinking poll numbers and criticism around his response to the pinko fucking pox. CNN Brazil reports Bolsonaro met with Miller at the weekend conference. Speaking at a rally on Tuesday, Bolsonaro mentioned an intercepted American while railing against Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes. Without mentioning Miller or his colleagues by name, Bolsonaro has refused to obey any order issued by Moraes after he ruled for an investigation to be opened into Bolsonaro's spread of misinformation. Stop oppressing the Brazilian people, stop censoring your people, Bolsonaro said, directing his comments to Moraes. Without mentioning Miller or any other American by name, Bolsonaro added, "We are increasingly conservative, we are increasingly respectful of our law and constitution, and we will no longer allow people like Alexandre de Moraes to continue to whip our democracy and disrespect our constitution." He had every opportunity to act with respect for all of us, but he didn't act in that way, and he still doesn't, as he intercepted an American citizen to be questioned about anti-democratic ideas. A shame our country, sponsored by Alexandre de Moraes. Moraes has not publicly responded to Bolsonaro's claims. It is not clear who or which Brazilian authority ordered Miller and his colleagues to be questioned. So this is what they're citing as the reason that they know that Miller was down there to create the Haitian caravan, which, once again, blows my mind because it's these same people who come out and say, "Oh, well, Trump is peddling in dangerous conspiracy theories, but Jason Miller totally took a flight, $1,000 worth of flight, to Brazil to go aid Haitian migrants to come up so Republicans have something to talk about." Dude, I said it was retarded when MAGA people said the same thing about Hillary people, who organized the Central American caravans to come up here and hit the border to try and make Trump look bad. They do the Central American thing every year. But realistically, yes, they're going to continue to come out and try to come out and say, "Oh, well, it's not a conspiracy theory. This is actually happening." All right, from NBC, hungry and desperate, climate change fuels a migration crisis in Guatemala. From Denise Chow and Carlos P. Beltran. Darwin Mendez has tried and failed to reach the U.S. 3 times, 23 and 30,000 in debt. He is leaving Guatemala is his only option, or he said rather, leaving Guatemala is his only option. Years of punishing drought scorched the field he farms with his father, mother, uncle, and siblings, shrinking the maize and drying out what precious few kernels grow on the tiny cobs. Then came the rains. Unpredictable storms and back-to-back hurricanes last year brought heavy downpours to the hills of western Guatemala, triggering mudslides that buried Mendez's crops and left pests and disease in their wake. When the land dried out, it stayed dry, and the region is once again gripped by prolonged heat waves and persistent drought. For Mendez, it means another year of poor harvest. "We don't have much land, no one does around here, so when we lose crops, we lose everything," he said. As Guatemala lurches between intense droughts and devastating floods, two extremes made worse by climate change. Jesus. Gotta throw that agenda in there. Some farmers like Mendez are being forced to take drastic action, selling whatever they can or borrowing huge sums of money and leaving home. Most will move within the country to cities in search of work, while others will join the tens of thousands of Guatemalans who each year attempt a much more treacherous journey north. More than a fifth of the population of Guatemala faces what one UN agency considers dangerously high levels of food insecurity. Nearly half of all children in the country under the age of 5 suffer from chronic malnutrition, and in some of the other vulnerable rural communities, that number is significantly higher, according to the UN World Food Program. "Whatever we grow in the field is not enough to feed ourselves," Mendez said. "I want to go to the US so I can feed my family." More than 250 miles away from where Mendez lives in Huehuetenango. Alright, let's see if we can do this Spanishly. Huehuetenango. That's a weird word. Jose Vasquez is similarly finding it difficult to survive off what he can grow. Vasquez, 42, is a small farmer in Chiquimula in southern Guatemala. On a recent walk through his sloping fields, he snapped corn off a couple stalks, pulling aside the papery husk to reveal withered cobs notched with only a few brown kernels. "The problem with the maize is the rain never came," he said, adding that he feels desperate at times. "I'm afraid because there might not be enough food for my family." Experts have said climate change could displace hundreds of millions of people around the world as rising sea levels, hotter temperatures, and more frequent extreme weather events transform where is livable on the planet. In places already grappling with high levels of poverty, corruption, and conflict, the effects of global warming may reach a fragile tipping point for some of the world's most vulnerable communities. It's a situation that's already playing out in Guatemala. Without deep cuts in global emissions, it's likely that global warming will create climate migrants on just about every continent. The consequences will be staggering. It's hard to point to a region of the world that's not going to be heavily impacted by climate change and from migration, said Nicholas Debsky, a doctoral student at the University of California, Berkeley, and a researcher at the Climate Impact Lab, a consortium of climate scientists from Berkeley, University of Chicago, the Rhodium Group, and Rutgers. When you see the writing on the wall, it's hard to feel like there's any way you can overstate the gravity of the situation. From Southeast Asia to Central America, the movement of people displaced by climate change could fuel political conflicts between nations or deepen existing tensions, Debsky said. From a U.S. perspective, migration is already such a flashpoint, he said. It's such a diverse political issue, and Central America is already a big region of focus because of how it plays into our political discourse here. Migration has been a focus for the Climate Impact Lab, and Debsky's research has centered in particular on drought in the Central American Guatemala, sits along the so-called dry corridor, a stretch of Central America that extends from southern Mexico to Panama, where high levels of poverty and reliance on grain crops in rural communities make the people in the region especially vulnerable to climate change. Which I do understand, and I accept the fact that Guatemala is not as technologically advanced as the US is. I do understand that aspect to this entire thing. And it's the same thing with Mexico, to be honest, but a lot more of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the money that's running there is either coming from tourism, as people go to some of the rich places like Boca Raton or Quintana Roo or something like that, and most of the rest of the country is left in squalor because of, well, basically what the cartels are doing as the cartels run the country. A lot less of that is the people of the country, and a lot more of that involves the way the country is run. Let's be frank about that. But I mean, with this rapid climate change and some of the various challenging places we have in this country to grow crops, we can still grow an abundance of food. I mean, there's food that's getting thrown away in this country. And we can still do that here. But they can't irrigate and affect and terraform Guatemala to be where it wants to be. I've said before that, you know, so many of these people just want to take care of Mexico and bring them here and tap into our resources to help them. Why don't we just annex Mexico at some point? Why don't we annex the country of Mexico and Guatemala, just run it all the way down to the Panama Canal, and then fix the problems that they have, and then never give them the land back. Do the irrigation, terraform the countries to where they can actually grow effective crops, and then make them all states. I'm not actually suggesting that, but you know, that seems to be the idea that most of these leftoids want, because, I mean, they don't want people to migrate either. That's one thing. Well, let me rephrase that. They don't want themselves to have to migrate. I want to stay within 10 miles of my parents' house for the rest of my life. Why? Bitch, I got out of there as fast as I could and as far as I could. I even got as far as the East Coast at one point. Get out. Get away from your parents. Move away. Go find opportunity elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, I do understand where there are the issues here, but technologically, we've overcome them here. Hell, you can grow food in Florida. I've seen it done. And that gets battered by hurricanes every year. Or at least tropical storms. But that's what we're seeing coming out of that. From the Hill. 14 Mexican soldiers briefly detained in El Paso. From Joseph Choi. 14 Mexican soldiers were detained for several hours on Saturday by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents after crossing into the El Paso, Texas. Just after midnight today, CBP officers working at the bridge of the Americas International Crossing in El Paso noted 2 Mexican military vehicles crossing the boundary and entering the U.S., CBP said in a statement provided to Reuters. As the news service reported, the soldiers said they did not realize they had crossed the border. CBP secured their weapons and equipment for safety and processing, and Mexican military leadership also was contacted. Due to the incident, the border was reportedly closed for 2 hours. One witness told Reuters the soldiers were led away in handcuffs. Though most of the soldiers were processed uneventfully, one was issued a civil penalty for having a personal use amount of marijuana with him, according to Reuters. All the soldiers and their belongings were reportedly returned to Mexico before 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. Okay, if it's so easy that you can just wander across and then say, oh, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa, I didn't know that I crossed the border, then that's why we have a migration crisis going on right now. That's why we have an immigration crisis and a border crisis, is because, reportedly, oh, no, mea culpa, I didn't mean to come over here, I didn't mean to do that. Whereas, realistically, oh, it's just migrants, don't worry, it's just people who are refugees, women and children and families and all this, and not military-aged men, in spite of the fact that it turns out that it is military-aged men. From the Daily Wire. Reporters grill Psaki about Biden promising to Border Patrol agents that photos will pay. From Daily Wire News. Reporters from mainstream news organizations pressed White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Friday over remarks from President Biden, who said earlier in the day that the U.S. Border Patrol agents who were seen on horseback approaching migrants illegally entering the U.S. will pay. The DHS Secretary several times said he didn't want to impair the integrity of the investigation into the Border Patrol agents. He said, I will not prejudge the facts, ABC News reporter Karen Travers said. Did the president prejudge the fact when he said, I promise you those people will pay? Let's listen.
The DHS secretary several times said he didn't want to impair the integrity of the investigation into the Border Patrol agents. He said, "I will not prejudge the facts." Did the president prejudge the facts when he said, "I promise you those people will pay"?
I think what you heard from the president is a very human and visceral response to those images, which I think reflects how a lot of people in the country felt when they saw them. There is an investigation the Department of Homeland Security is overseeing. That will determine what the personnel decisions may be, any other policy decisions, and that needs to see itself through. But I think the president wanted to make clear to people who watched those photos, who had understandably emotional responses, that that's not acceptable to him. Even while the investigation is happening and moving forward, that will determine what the consequences will look like.
There's more.
Just to put a fine point on your answer to Karen's question,
Sure.
I'm sure that the union officials and lawyers who will be representing these agents want to know. Is it your view or the White House's position that what the president said this morning is not legally operative with respect to consequences and these people paying? It was simply his personal view and not representative of actions that the government will take?
The president was not prejudging the outcome of an investigation either. The president was responding from his heart and responding to seeing horrific photos that we have seen over the last several days.
He is the head of the executive branch. The Constitution vests him with the authority in Article 2. You're saying that what he said will not necessarily be the outcome?
Again, there's an investigation that's ongoing. I don't know that anyone saw those photos and didn't have a similar reaction to the president's, and that was what it was a reflection of.
And that's all we have from this. But, I mean, dude, nobody knows what's going on in that thing. Nobody has any idea what's going on in that admin, including Jen Psaki. But, I mean, she's paid to lie on top of that, so... Yes, everyone's having an emotional reaction. And I'm having an emotional reaction, too. Stop questioning me. Alright. Circle back. Assault on female U.S. service member by male Afghan refugees at Fort Bliss under FBI investigation. From Andrew Mark Miller. An investigation is underway into an alleged attack of a female U.S. military service member by several male Afghan evacuees being housed at Fort Bliss. The FBI has confirmed to Fox News it is investigating a referral from a Fort Bliss Afghan refugee housing complex in New Mexico alleging that a woman whose name and age are unknown at this time was assaulted on September 19th by a small group of male evacuees. We received a referral from Fort Bliss and our office is investigating the allegation, FBI Public Affairs Officer Special Agent Jeanette Harper told Fox News. Officials at Fort Bliss confirmed the report of the assault on Fox News. We can confirm that a female service member supporting Operation Allies Welcome reported being assaulted on September 19th by a small group of male evacuees in the Dona Ana complex in New Mexico. It's the 1st Armored Division, and Fort Bliss Public Affairs said in an email statement, "We take the allegation seriously and appropriately refer the matter to a Federal Bureau of Investigation. The safety and well-being of our service members, as well as all of those on installations, is paramount." The statement added that counseling and support has been provided to the service member. Task Force Bliss is also implementing additional security measures to include increased health and safety patrols, additional lighting, and enforcement of the buddy system at the Dona Ana complex. The statement continued, "We will cooperate fully with the FBI and will continue to ensure the service member reporting this assault is fully supported." Representative Yvette Harrell, a Republican congresswoman who represents New Mexico's 2nd District, called the news a vetting failure. "My prayers are with the courageous soldier and her family. This is yet another tragic failure of the vetting process for Afghan nationals," Harrell tweeted. "The American people deserve answers." The alleged attack came on the heel of 2 Afghan refugees housed at Wisconsin's Fort McCoy being indicted for federal crimes including sexual assault on a minor and domestic assault. Which, once again, this is more... The one in Wisconsin is more of a dude picked up a child bride on his way over here to try and smuggle a girl into the country and decided that he wanted to get some from his 14-year-old wife, and that doesn't play well in Wisconsin. That was not he busted out of the area and went and to the local town around there, which I guess would be Toma, and went patrolling the middle schools for pizza ass. He didn't do that. He most likely just kind of tried to get someone from his child bride, and she said no. Is most likely what happened there. But in this case, in this particular case, no, that's not what happened. And I do have to point out, once again, we have safe third country laws in place. And Qatar, which agreed to be a safe third country, for all of the evacuees, all the refugees, and even the American service members, is much closer in culture to Afghanistan than the United States is. But that's what we see coming out of that. Let's grab one from the Blaze. From the Blaze. Play these fuckers. Arizona resident who worked with the U.S. military says he's trapped in Afghanistan, slams Biden. A lot of people still left behind. No, that's not what happened. Everyone who wanted to get out got out. From Paul Saka. A permanent resident of the U.S. and former combat interpreter who worked with the U.S. military in Afghanistan says he and his family are trapped in Afghanistan now that the country is dominated by the oppressive Taliban. The Taliban, man, come on! He doesn't believe he'll be able to safely escape the country. The man, a resident of Arizona, told Fox News that he is now in hiding in Afghanistan because the Biden admin didn't have a clear evacuation plan. The 31-year-old also revealed that he is not alone in being an American resident stranded in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. Taliban! Biden's Taliban. The Taliban, man! And we're gonna work with them, man. Come on, and we can trust them. Don't worry about it. It's almost as good as Trump's China. The problems in this country are coming from China, and we're going to stop the manufacturing from going over to China. The Biden admin left without any plan. That's why there are thousands of allies who work for the U.S. military, American citizens, Afghan Americans, all stuck here, he explained. He added that Afghans who did escape the country were likely beggars displaced from other provinces and probably not qualified members of the Afghan Special Immigrant Visa Program. There are a lot of people like me, Zakaria said. We are the ones who are qualified. We put ourselves and our families in danger, and they took people who don't even have documents. It was impossible to get to the airport, he said, adding that his brother got beaten by the Taliban when attempting to access Kabul airport. He said the Taliban demanded $600 to get past checkpoints near the Hamid Karzai International Airport. Well, that's probably partially because Ghani ran away with pretty much the entire fucking treasury. Zakaria served as an officer in the Afghan army, then worked with the U.S. military from 2011 to 2015. As a linguist combat interpreter, he reportedly received a green card and legal residence in the U.S. in return for his service. He provided Fox News with documents supporting his claims and dozens of emails he wrote to the State Department and U.S. embassies. He attempted to evacuate Afghanistan in July, but was allegedly provided no assistance from the State Department, who told him only help citizens, not green card holders, were being helped out of the country. He claimed that he filled out repatriation forms and other necessary documents nearly 40 times, but was never approved. But don't worry, folks. The Houseplant-in-Chief assured us that the only people who are not getting out of Afghanistan wanted to stay there. Everybody who wanted to get out, got out. Alright, from the Daily Wire. Iran fails to honor a key nuclear agreement, only days away from enough fuel for a nuclear weapon. Now, point out, there's no mainstream coverage of this. This is only coming from the Daily Wire, so take this with a grain of salt, of course. I don't know if this is true. I don't know how much of this is true. I know that Shapiro has a hard-on for getting rid of Persia because they are the direct threat to his native people, the Ashkenazi Jews. But I still thought it was interesting enough to point out. So let's check out what they're saying here from Ryan Saavedra. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, has failed to honor, and there's more linguistics here. It's not just Iran, they're the leading state sponsor of terrorism, which I understand that they are. But you're throwing this linguistics in here to try and get your audience, mostly populist, Shapiro-white, warmonger conservatives, pissed off at Iran. Not populist. Neocon. Neocon warmongering Republicans, that's the main audience of the Daily Wire, to get pissed off enough at Iran that they want to go out and do something to save Israel. The deal reached between the two sides would allow the IAEA's inspectors to service damage monitoring equipment at one of Iran's nuclear facilities. The agency said in a statement, the IAEA Director General, Rafael Grossi, stresses that Iran's decision to not allow agency access to the Tisa Karaj centrifuge component manufacturing workshop is contrary to the agreed terms of the joint statement issued on 12 September. Iran, from 20 to 22 September, permitted IAEA inspectors to service identified agency monitoring and surveillance equipment to replace stored media at all necessary locations in Iran, with the exception of the centrifuge component manufacturing workshop at the TESA Karaj complex. The September 12th agreement, reached on the eve of meeting of the IAEA's 35-nation Board of Governors, met Western powers, chose not to seek a resolution criticizing Iran at the meeting, since the equipment's memory cards would be replaced just as they were due to fill up, Reuters reported. That workshop was the victim of apparent sabotage in June, in which one of 4 IAEA cameras were destroyed. Iran has not returned the camera's data storage medium, and the IAEA said in a report this month it had asked Iran to locate and explain under the deal IAEA was due to replace its cameras. The matter comes as Iran is rapidly moving towards having enough nuclear material to be able to have a nuclear weapon, something that could spark a war in the region, as Israel has repeatedly indicated it will not allow Iran to reach that point. Back at the start of August, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz said that Iran was only about 10 weeks away from acquiring weapons-grade materials necessary for a nuclear weapon. On September 13th, the New York Times, a former newspaper, reported that Iran, according to the IAEA, has come within roughly a month of having enough material to fuel a single nuclear weapon. Experts studying new data contained in the reports last week by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN Atomic Inspection Group, say that by enriching nuclear fuel in recent months to near bomb-grade levels, Tehran has gained the capability to produce the fuel needed for a single nuclear warhead within a month or so, the Times added. A report issued on Monday by the Institute for Science and International Security, a private group that specializes in analyzing the findings of the UN, concludes that a race over the summer to enrich uranium at 60% purity, just below bomb grade, has put Iran in a position to produce the fuel for a single bomb in as short as a month. So, well, that's something to think about, and it looks like the New York Times has confirmed that they're able to do so. Now, all that I'm getting out of this article, as far as facts, is the fact that the cameras in the area were damaged, and they have no idea when and if there's going to be enough material for a nuclear bomb. But they're trying to put the fear back out of there, so we put more troops back in the Middle East. This is Shapiro's website, and he is looking for any excuse to go back into the region. Okay, gang, we've got to get over there. We've got to put all of our lives on the line, okay, for Israel, because they're our greatest ally, and we need to do everything we can for Israel, okay? That's what we need to do here. So, look at me, and my wife is from over there. She's a doctor. She's smoking hot, gang. Okay. But that's what we see. I see no confirmation that they'll be able to have the weapons, but I'm not discounting it either. I'm not saying that they won't. I'm just not seeing enough evidence to say for sure that they will. Let's talk about the commie coup. Starting with this one here from Jewish Deplorable. Tweets out, fully vaccinated Sonny Hostin and Anna Navarro have tested positive for the pinko fucking pox. Let's listen.
Two of you to step off for a second.
Okay.
Anna and
we're going to bring
Sunny
you back later.
have to leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll tell you why.
More information later. It's a tease.
We'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. So shall I introduce the Vice President?
Yes.
Okay. So, Vice President, no.
Nope.
Okay. Shall we dance? Let's do a tap dance.
Let's do that.
Since this is going to be a major news story any minute now,
Yeah.
what happened is that Sunny and Anna both apparently tested positive for COVID. No matter how hard we try, these things happen. They probably have a breakthrough case, and they'll be okay, I'm sure, because they're both vaccinated up the wazoo. You know, a lot of vaccines. So,
Two of you to step off for a second.
Okay.
Anna.
So, and I don't understand this, because this is supposed to be this major contagion thing. Like, if you're in the same room as somebody with COVID, you'll automatically get pneumonia, you'll automatically get fluid filling up in your lungs, and you'll automatically, you'll hear the voice on the nearest phone that says, 7 days. And yet, there they are, in the same room as everybody, unmasked, on top of it all. This was a fucking stunt. I'm sorry. This was a stunt. There was no reality behind this. This was a show. And I don't know if it's because they didn't want those two to talk to the president. I don't know if they thought they were going to ask hard questions. I don't know what they thought this was, but I mean, there is no, they're socially distanced. Apparently that's not enough, because they're still within the ventilated system that's recycling the air in between everybody. No masks, no nothing. They're just sitting over there on the end of the table. And then Joy and the blonde-haired bobblehead move over to the middle of the table, just a few feet away from where these people were sitting. Because remember, this can live forever on surfaces, too. This was a stunt. There was nothing here. There was nothing here. But we'll read a little bit about it here from our friends over at NPR. And remember, you do need to get them the donations, because they need to transmit their communist ideals around the country. View co-host test positive for COVID moments before Harris interview. No, they didn't test positive. We'll talk about it in the article. I'm not going to do that in my NPR voice. But this is from Alana Wise. And remember, that donate button is there. So they need your money, comrade. I mean, our money. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. Two hosts of the popular ABC daytime talk show The View tested positive for the pinko pox moments before Vice President Harris was set to appear on stage in what the network had touted as her first in-studio talk show interview since taking office. Sunny Hostin and Anna Navarro, both of whom are vaccinated against the pinko pox, were dramatically called away by a show staffer just before Harris was to join on stage. The two remaining co-hosts, Joy Behar and Sarah Haynes, ultimately interviewed Harris virtually, while the vice president was stationed elsewhere in the studio. Wow. Okay, well, everybody else in the program can be allowed to be in the studio with everybody else here, but I got to be somewhere else, and and I'm reading cue cards, and I'm totally cheating the system. Sunny and Anna are strong women, and I know they'll be fine, Harris said of the two sideline hosts. But it really does speak to the fact that they're vaccinated, and vaccines really do make all the difference, because otherwise we would be concerned about hospitalization and worse. After the news of the host's infection settled, the interview shifted to the administration's treatment of Haitian asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border. Recent images of Border Patrol agents on horseback violently interacting with the Haitian refugees, and a bunch of ladies reaching around and stroking each other off to come out and make a feel-good program. Yeah, that's what this is. All right. From Fox, a continuation on the story. Drama at The View. COVID tests were false positives. Co-host reveal. Oh, interesting. So, you get called in. This makes this even more interesting, because right before they're about to go back and interviewed the vice president. 2 of them get called away. They're gone, get pulled out. So I don't know if they were in on this then, or if we've got to get weekly tested because we're on TV. So if they got their weekly tests and, oops, sorry, no, you've got to come away from, you've got to get pulled away from this area now. You can't come back and do this. And, oops, sorry, the interview's over. Hey, I guess it was a false positive. I smell a bunch of bullshit here. I sure do. Let's read from Courtney O'Brien. Anna Navarro, one of the 2 co-hosts who were pulled from ABC's The View live on air Friday, due to positive COVID tests, has since revealed the results that caused the chaos were false positives. Producers informed Navarro and Sunny Hostin in their earpieces halfway through Friday's broadcast they would have to leave the Hot Topics table, leaving Behar and Haynes to conduct the rest of the show on their own. The remaining hosts often struggled to kill time, at one point taking questions from the audience, but often not being able to hear the questions that were muffled by their masks. Hey Behar! Joy, do you really love the vice president? Do you really love what she is doing here? Tell us how much you love the vice president and the fact that we don't have a man who's both evil and orange and evil in the White House anymore. Friday's drama was even more pronounced considering Navarro and Hostin were pulled just as Vice President was on her way to the studio for an in-person interview. Even though Harris made it to the building, producers explained her appearance would end up taking place remotely from a separate room out of precaution. We were very excited to have the Vice President come on The View, and then all of a sudden it turned into an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Navarro said of Friday's drama. In an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper, it was just surreal. Navarro also revealed what she discovered behind the scenes while waiting in her dressing room. After being ushered out of the studio, Navarro said both the PCR antigen tests she took came back as false positive. She said she couldn't speak to Hostin's results out of privacy. So, we took the rapid antigen test and we took the PCR. Both come back as false positive for me, Navarro said. Navarro also told Cooper that as a guest co-host for the show, she gets tested regularly. Let's listen.
View co-host Sunny Hostin and guest host Anna Navarro have now tested negative for COVID twice. One was a rapid test, the other a PCR. Sources say the 2 hosts are now awaiting the results of a second PCR test. Hostin and Navarro, both whom are fully vaccinated, were told to leave the set on live TV this morning just before an interview with Vice President Harris. Take a look.
There seems to be something happening here that I'm not 100% aware of. Can someone please apprise me of the situation?
I need the 2 of you to step off for a second.
Okay.
Anna and
we're going to bring
Sunny
you back later.
have to
Okay.
leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shall I introduce the Vice President?
Yes.
Okay. So, Vice President, no.
Nope.
Okay. Shall we dance? Let's do a tap dance.
Let's put that there.
Anna Navarro joins us now. So, what happened? You have 2 negative tests now. How are you feeling? And just can you walk us through what happened?
I'm feeling great. First thing I want to do, Anderson, is say thank you to all the well-wishers. There's been so many people on social media wishing us well, and we're doing great. I also want to thank the Vice President's office, Kamala Harris herself, her team, Simone Sanders, Tina Flournoy. I want to thank the Secret Service. They were all great. And, and the team at The View. It takes so much work to do an interview like this, and it's something that we were excited about. We were prepared to ask some tough questions. We were very proud to have the Vice President come on The View, and then all of a sudden it turned into like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was just
but
surreal.
how often are you tested? How often are you tested for live TV?
I'm tested weekly.
Okay.
I'm tested every time. I co-host a couple of times, a couple of days a week, and I usually get tested before I come into the building. So we are all tested weekly. There's a lot of measures taken at The View. Right. There's, like in your show, there's limited staff on the.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this sounds to me like a couple of people are about to ask very, very pointed questions of the Vice President that the producers of The View didn't want asked, is what this sounds like to me. But if I'm wrong, tell me in the chat. I got it up. Get the music back up and let's keep going. From the Blaze. Multiple House Republicans back bill to slap down Biden admin vaccine mandates from Alex Nitzberg. More than a dozen House Republicans, led by Andy Biggs, have introduced legislation that takes aim at federal vaccine mandates, according to the Daily Caller. The Freedom from Mandates Act would kill the Biden admin's plan to force employers with 100 or more employees to require workers to get either vaccinated or furnish a negative test each week. The Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, otherwise known as the Oh Shit Administration, is developing a rule that will require employers with 100 or more employees to ensure their workforce is fully vaccinated or require any workers who remain unvaccinated to produce a negative test on at least a weekly basis before coming to work. OSHA will issue an emergency temporary standard to implement this requirement, according to the White House. But the bill would nip that plan in the bud. The Secretary of Labor may not issue any rule requiring employers to mandate vaccination of employees against COVID-19 or is requiring testing of employees who are unvaccinated against COVID-19, the bill states. The legislation would also nullify 2 of Biden's executive orders, including an order mandating the coronavirus vaccination for federal employees. It would also stipulate that the Secretary of Health and Human Services may not require that healthcare providers, as a condition of engaging in Medicare or Medicaid, mandate employee COVID-19 vaccination or testing. The proposal would also prohibit penalizing providers for not mandating employee vaccination or testing. The federal government may not force the American people to get a vaccine against their will. President Biden's continued attempts to trample on the rights of liberties of Americans must not be tolerated. His vaccine mandates are just another example of using fear and division to pit Americans against each other and maintain his control. Yes, that's exactly what this is. Getting the fear out there, making the us and them statement, and really honestly, I do think, especially when you're trying to take the livelihoods away from people, that this is trying to stoke a civil war. But they're trying to stoke it in a way that white people started. There is going to be a civil war in this country. Who starts it? I don't know. I think we saw some of the inklings of it during the St. George riots last year. I could definitely see that being a precursor to all this here, but it does look like there are desperate attempts to try to get white people to start the civil war by taking away the means of feeding their families. But that might backfire on them too, because they're sitting back here looking at this and, you know, they're finding ways to... I mean, BLM is planning on protesting more and more as the vaccine mandates go up, and the Biden approval rating among black people is dropping like a stone because of the vaccine mandates. Nobody wants this shit. Except for the Biden admin. Speaking of the Biden admin, reading from NBC 10 out of Boston. Judge denies Mass State Police bid for injunction on vaccine mandate. From Matt Murphy. A Superior Court judge late Thursday denied the request of the union representing 1,800 members of the state police to block the implementation of Charlie Baker's vaccine mandate until the details can be collectively bargained, a move that the union said has prompted dozens of resignations. The decision leaves unvaccinated troopers with just days to get their first dose of Pfizer vaccine or face potential disciplinary action, including the loss of their job, when they're not fully vaccinated by mid-October. Judge Jackie Cohen ruled that the State Police Association of Mass had failed to show that the implementation of the mandate October 17th would either cause irreparable harm to its members or that a delay would serve the public interest. To date, dozens of troopers have already submitted their resignation paperwork, some of whom plan to return to other departments offering reasonable alternatives, such as mask wearing and regular testing. SPAM President Michael Shervin said in a statement on Friday, "These state police are already critically short-staffed," and acknowledged that this by the unprecedented moves which took troopers from specialty units that investigate homicide, terrorism, computer crimes, arsons, gangs, narcotics, and human trafficking and returned them to uniform patrol. There's a good reason not to speed in Massachusetts. The detectives are back on desk or on uniform duty. They're back on patrol duty. Which means that if they have to stop you, they're already pissed off at their bosses and their former co-workers. So if you're driving through Mass, I recommend taking it just a little bit easy for a little while. And not driving by the people with the local plates that are driving around you. Because I can already see this being a bad problem. But while the state policy says it's possible some troopers started the resignation process or announced plans to do so, no troopers resigned Friday because of the mandate. We will decline comment. No retirements occurred today because of the vaccine issue, state police told NBC 10 Boston. There was only one retirement today, a major, had nothing to do with the vaccine. They may have submitted paperwork or indicated to the union that they plan to do so, but no retirement orders were cut today. And this one won't let me read it because I'm blocking ads and I didn't get it archived back out, so we'll skip that one. But this was another article talking about the dozens of state patrol officers who were resigning, which we saw some of that in the last article, so we'll skip this one altogether. From the Blaze, shifting gears, talking more about the economy. Democrats now pushing massive $3.5 trillion spending bill by claiming it costs $0. From Chris Enlow. I think we have video of this. No, we don't have video. Lame. Anyway. Democrats, including Joe Biden, are now trying to sell the $3.5 trillion spending package by claiming the massive bill costs $0. Over the weekend, Biden shared a message from his Twitter account claiming the bill has no cost despite its massive $3.5 trillion price tag. My Build Back Better agenda costs $0, Biden tweeted. Instead of wasting money into tax breaks, loopholes, and tax evasion for big corporations and the wealthy, we can make a once-in-a-generation investment in working America, and it adds $0 to the national debt. Okay, then why are you struggling so hard to get the fucking national debt raised? White House spokesperson Andrew Bates told Axios on Friday, the bill's price tag is $0 because it will be paid for by ending failed special tax giveaways for the richest taxpayers and big corporations, adding nothing to the debt. You think that these guys are going to go after their donors? You're out of your mind. Representative Pramila Jayapal, chairwoman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, repeated the erroneous claim during an interview Sunday on CBS News' Face the Nation. President Biden said that something very important the other day, which is this is a $0 bill because it's going to be completely paid for with taxes on the wealthiest and largest corporations, Jayapal said. Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampel boosted a similar claim Sunday on CNN's reliable sources. The bill itself will not cost $3.5 trillion in the sense it will be entirely or at least partly paid for. So the actual cost in terms of deficits will be smaller than the perhaps even $0, although I think that's unlikely, Rampel claimed. As CBS News host Margaret Brennan told Jayapal, the massive spending package that Democrats want to pass, hardly knowing everything that's in it, does not cost $0. The Joint Committee on Taxation says that in raising this revenue, taxes could go up at least 2% on those making between $200,000 and $500,000 a year. Brennan explained, it will also raise taxes for corporations and those who are wealthier, so it's not no cost. The Wall Street Journal aptly characterized Democrats' new talking point as the largest tax increase as a share of the GDP and the largest entitlement expansion since the 60s cost nothing, and money grows on trees. Yes, no, this is not a zero-cost bill. And furthermore, when they keep out saying that, all we're going to do is we're going to use this bill to go after the rich people and make them pay their fair share, make them pay in more, and make them pay in everything else. This bill contains a provision that allows the government to monitor transactions on all bank accounts that carry more than $600. I think most of you have $600 in the fucking bank. This is not about millionaires and billionaires. Chamber of Commerce warns moderate Democrats against voting for reconciliation. From Carl Evers Hillstrom. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce launched a six-figure ad campaign Wednesday, pressuring moderate House Democrats to vote down the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. The ads targets Representative Cindy Axne of Iowa, Angie Craig of Minnesota, Antonio Delgado of New York, Josh Harder of California, Elaine Luria of Virginia, urging them to reject Democrats' party line spending plan over its proposed tax hikes. $0! The corporate lobbying group endorsed all of those House Democrats in the 2020 election. The ad campaign comes after the chamber sent out a key vote letter to lawmakers urging them to reject the reconciliation package or risk losing the group's endorsement. No member of Congress can achieve the support of the business community if they vote to pass this bill, as currently constructed, the letter read. Big business groups are lobbying lawmakers to pass a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, which does not raise taxes, but oppose the larger reconciliation package. Dear Hill, I hate to tell you this, but that bipartisan infrastructure bill will also raise taxes. Sorry, bro. That is funded by increased taxes on corporations and wealthy individuals. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce CEO Suzanne Clark, called the $3.5 trillion plan an existential threat to America's fragile economic recovery and future prosperity in a statement on Wednesday. We will not find durable or practical solutions in one massive bill that is equivalent to more than twice the combined budget of all 50 states, Clark said. The success of the bipartisan infrastructure negotiations provide a much better model for how Congress should proceed in addressing America's problems. I am offline all the way. Oh, there it goes. Okay, we are back. That one took a while. Sorry about that, folks. Democrats can only afford 3 defections in the House when they vote on the reconciliation package. Speaker Pelosi has insisted that a bipartisan infrastructure bill must pass alongside the party's spending package that invests in climate, childcare, and other Democratic priorities. Moderate Democrats previously negotiated a deal with Pelosi to vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill by September 27th. Progressive lawmakers believe that they will have less leverage to pass the $3.5 trillion spending plan if the smaller infrastructure bill is already signed into law. So, a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of stuff moving, a lot of moving parts. And I can see, if the Chamber of Commerce is telling you this is going to destroy America, you might want to go back and listen to them because they know business. That's what they do as an organization. That's what they do, is commerce and business. And if they think this is going to fuck everything up, then you might want to pay attention to what they have to say over your mainstream media echo chamber. We'll do a brief one on the Trump rally here from WSB-TV 2 out of Atlanta. Former President Trump visits South Georgia to air past grievances, endorse Herschel Walker. From WSBTV.com news staff. It was billed as the Save America rally where former President Trump would endorse the people he believed should be the next round of political office holders in the state of Georgia. The event was an all-day affair held at the Georgia State Fairgrounds in Perry, featuring Trump, his hand-picked Senate candidate, former UGA running back Herschel Walker, and several others running for state offices. The crowd was eager, excited, and ready to hear what they all had to say. Trump was there to support the candidates, including Walker, who made his first appearance at a Trump rally, and spoke glowingly of getting Trump's endorsement. And y'all remember electing a young man by the name of Donald J. Trump, and that young man has endorsed Herschel Walker, said Walker. Channel 2 Action News reporter Richard Elliott was at the rally Saturday and said Trump did not offer much in the way of support for any of the candidates after a hearty welcome from the crowd and criticism of President Biden for inflation, unemployment, and withdrawing from Afghanistan. The conversation went back to Trump's past grievances, specifically his loss in Georgia and unproven allegations of voter fraud in the state. And a very special hello to a very special place Georgia, Trump said. This is what happens when you have a dishonest election. This is all about a rigged election. None of these disasters should ever have been allowed to happen. So, and yes, of course, more linguistics off of this. They're not going to talk about the speech. They're not going to talk about the people who cheered for it. They're going to talk about the fact that he's lying and saying that he lost an election that he lost, or that he won an election he lost. Oh no! It's the end of democracy. But he did go harder into it. Trump turns up heat and attacks on top Georgia Republicans, touts pro-Trump candidates. From Paul Steinhauser. Former President Trump returned to Georgia this week to amplify his attacks on key battleground states' top elected Republican leaders and to showcase a trio of candidates loyal to the former president. For Trump, the trip to Georgia was personal. It came as he's still trying to overturn his race-within defeat to now President Biden in Georgia. He can't overturn it! More than 10 months after losing the White House in the 2020 election, and Trump used his rally at the Georgia National Fairgrounds in Perry, in the central part of the state, to target conservative Governor Brian Kemp, Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, and GOP Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger for refusing the then president's calls to overturn the election results in Georgia. Trump charged the comments to the large crowd that last year's contest was the most corrupt election in the history of the country, as he once again repeated his unfounded claims that the presidential election was rigged and stolen from him. And the former president urged his supporters to oust Kemp and Raffensperger in next year's election, saying that the people of Georgia must replace the rhinos and weak Republicans who made it all possible. Rhino stands for Republican in name only. So, and then they go a review on who is running when and where, but, you know, I saw at one point on the Daily Wire, and I chose not to use the Daily Wire article for this, but there was one point on the Daily Wire where they said that Trump said Stacey Abrams would make a better governor than Brian Kemp, okay? But that's where we go with that. Let's grab one here from The Hill. Federal court vacates gun rights ruling on restricting buyers under 21. From Joseph Choi. A U.S. Court of Appeals on Wednesday threw out a previous ruling it had made that found a ban on gun buyers under 21 to be unconstitutional. The Fourth Circuit ruled that its previous ruling in July was now moot because the two plaintiffs in the case had recently turned 21, Reuters reported. Judge Julius Richardson said that vacating the ruling he had previously authored would serve as the public's interest, as it would make way for further litigation in the future. The federal judge said both the public and legal communities would benefit from this action, as the exchange of ideas between panel and dissent will remain available as a persuasive source. In July, the court ruled that the 21 minimum age requirement to purchase a gun was unconstitutional. Looking through the historical lens to the text and structure of the Constitution reveals that 18 to 20-year-olds have Second Amendment rights. Virtually every other constitutional right applies, whatever the age, and the Second Amendment is no different, Richardson had written in the ruling. While noting the weighty interest in reducing crime and violence, Richardson said the court would not relegate either the Second Amendment or 18 to 20-year-olds to a second-class status. The militia laws in force at the time of ratification uniformly required those 18 and older to join the militia and bring their own arms. While some historical restrictions existed, none supported finding that 18-year-olds lacked rights under the Second Amendment, he wrote. Very interesting. And they're going to bring another litigation to this. And I don't understand why this had to be vacated. Well, I do, because then they get some shit in the news and go back and talk about it again. But yeah, we're back to the point now where it's legal for your local authority or even the federal government to restrict you to 21 years of age to buy a rifle, just like they already do with a handgun. Which is bullshit. Let's talk about Liz Cheney. Start by listening to the warmongering bitch. A vote against me in this race, a vote for whomever Donald Trump has endorsed, is a vote for someone who's willing to put allegiance to Trump above allegiance to the Constitution. You should not probably be talking about allegiance to the Constitution, Liz Cheney. Let's listen.
The Republican Party here has disowned you. They've called for your resignation. We've been told your approval rating here is down around 30%. Can you win this seat?
Absolutely. I think it's going to be the most important House race in the country in 2022. And it will be one where people do have the opportunity to say, we want to stand for the Constitution.
Do you think a vote against you is a vote against the Constitution?
A vote against me in this race, a vote for whomever Donald Trump has endorsed, is a vote for somebody who's willing to perpetuate the big lie, somebody who's willing to put allegiance to Trump above allegiance to the Constitution. Absolutely.
The Republican Party here.
Yeah, I wouldn't talk that loudly about the Constitution if I was you, Liz Cheney. I wouldn't. You might burst into flames or get struck by lightning or something. I hope that she gets taken out, but she's going to try. From CBS, Liz Cheney on being a Republican while opposing Donald Trump. From Leslie Stahl. This past week, the House Select Committee investigating the Selfie Fest shifted into a higher gear. On Thursday, it subpoenaed 4 of former President Trump's top advisors, including his chief of staff, for documents and depositions about the former president's actions on the day of the Selfie Fest and the days leading up to it. At the center of the Select Committee's probe is Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, who's doing everything she can to torpedo Trump. Like a Lone Ranger riding out of the West, she is one of the few Republicans daring to stand up to Mr. Trump and House Republican leaders who oppose her joining the committee. When we spoke to Congresswoman Cheney at the Capitol on Wednesday, she asked about a call she got from House Speaker Pelosi. Liz Cheney, she called me and asked me to be a member of the committee, and I accepted, and right away. No hesitation? No, because it's important that I go and be able to take aim at the guy who said mean things about my dad. None, because it's important, and because I also know that my participation in the committee makes that committee bipartisan. No, it doesn't. You're all neoliberals and neocons of the same fucking stripe. No one will question, my conservative credentials. Ooh, I will. But most Republicans in the House see what you're doing as betrayal. They look at Nancy Pelosi. Even you've said this. And I've got a quote here. You said, the Democrats under Pelosi's leadership have become the party of anti-Semitism, infanticide, and socialism. Direct quote from you. And yet, here you are. It's considered Nancy Pelosi's committee. I think that millions of people around the country have been betrayed and misled and deceived by Donald Trump. He has said that the election was stolen. He continues to say things that aren't true, and continues to raise money off those claims. And so, to me, there's just not a question. Yeah, she said that. When Trump populism and even Nancy Pelosi and the party of Nancy Pelosi is about the party of socialism, when that was popular and played well among Wyoming Republicans, Liz Cheney said that. She flip-flops so goddamn much. You don't know where she actually stands on stuff. She just goes into what's going to make her the most power, and she thinks that by hitching her wagon to Nancy Pelosi and the fucking globalists, she's going to keep the most power. But on top of all this, she's also looking to gain more power because, according to the Associated Press via Yahoo News, Liz Cheney, I was wrong in opposing gay marriage in the past. From Josh Boak. Representative Cheney said she was wrong to oppose gay marriage in the past, a stand that once split her family. Cheney, a fierce critic of fellow Republican Trump, also tells CBS News 60 Minutes that she views her re-election campaign as the most important House race in the nation. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. You are an insignificant congressperson from a small state who only has any sort of popularity because your last name is Cheney. This is not an important race. Except for the fact that we must defeat Trumpism. This is not an important race. This is by no stretch of the imagination an important race. You are a bitch. And you are a war pig. But that's part of the reason that you're attacking off of this too, because, you know, war used to be the most popular platform of the Republican Party, and now it's a dirty word among populist Republicans. I was wrong to oppose gay marriage. Please vote for me. Please move to Wyoming and come vote for me. What a sick fucking plea for votes. I can't even listen to this bitch anymore. So let's talk about the other one, the plant, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's back this up to the beginning and let's listen to her. So that's Debbie Dingell and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's not her by the way, into a screaming match on the steps at the Capitol. Apparently this is what led up to it. Alright, so that's that. And MTG walks down the steps and heckling Dems. Pete Aguilar, Dems Vice Caucus Chair, tells her she's being performative. No, you're performative, she replies. No, she is being performative because that's her entire shtick. It's being performative. That's the reason that she's there. Let's watch this one. Let's read the article that goes with it. Why are people singing Happy Birthday in the background? All right. And I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene there is no way, just looking at some of this stuff here, you can't tell me that she is an honest to goodness politician that actually believes her bullshit. Because she follows the script a little bit too well. That's something I noticed about her almost immediately. I mean, she follows the script, but it's almost a little bit too well. It's almost as if somebody's writing her a script based on the comments that progressives leave in every Facebook post that every Republican in the world has ever posted. And that you've seen them. If you ever go on Facebook, you've seen them all there. They're always under bot accounts. They've always got 5 or 10 different accounts that they're coming back and commenting on. That's all they do is they go back and comment. They did a lot on Scott Walker, and that's where I first pointed this out. And that's part of the reason I see this, because I used to go down before I started into this and read the comment section from Scott Walker when he was still the governor. And all the people that were in there that were hassling him over that. And I see a lot of the same tropes coming out of Marjorie Taylor Greene that came out of these people that were in that comment section. She's on the narrative just a little bit too well. And that's why I don't believe her. Or that she's real. Let's read from the New York Post. We've got just a couple more here, then we'll head out of here and go over and watch the Daily Ignoramus. Marjorie Taylor Greene gets in shouting match with Dem lawmakers on Capitol steps. From Julie Grace Brufke and Sam Raskin. Marjorie Taylor Greene on Friday sparked a shouting match with a pair of Democratic lawmakers outside the Capitol, prompting one of them to scream that the far-right politician should practice the biblical principle of loving one's neighbor. Videos show. after the House passed a bill codifying the landmark Roe v. Wade abortion rights case, a move made in response to the Supreme Court ruling on Texas' anti-abortion law. The outspoken Republican heckled Democrats holding a celebratory press conference on their legislative victory. "This is not women's rights!" Green shouted at the Capitol steps. "You're so performative," scoffed Peter Aguilar of California, according to a video posted to Twitter. After exchanging more words, Green declared, "You should all be ashamed," before storming down the steps away from a group of Democrats who gathered outside the Capitol. I wonder if we can hear this a little bit better from Zach Kodak. Let's listen.
You don't.
Yeah, I can't hear that any better, unfortunately. We tried. Yeah, and, you know, she is performative, but, you know, we follow the same line as the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which reasonably attractive. Coming out of a district that's almost guaranteed to elect her, as long as she's got the right letter next to her name, reads the script, does the thing. I think she's planted in there. I don't think she's for real. All right. From CNN, Biden decides it would be inappropriate to assert executive privilege on January 6th investigation. From Kevin Liptak and Megan Vasquez. President Biden generally does not expect to assert executive privilege to shield Trump-era records from being seen by a congressional committee investigating the January 6th insurrection attempt, Selfie Fest, the White House said on Friday. "Oh, we take this matter incredibly seriously," White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on a Friday press briefing. The president has already concluded that it would not be appropriate to assert executive privilege. Next question, please, before somebody asks me a harder question. We will respond promptly to these questions as they arise, Psaki added, and certainly as they come up from Congress. And certainly we have been working closely with congressional committees and others as they work to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, an incredibly dark day in our democracy. Later, Psaki said Biden was taking an eye towards not asserting executive privilege, but that requests would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The White House later attempted to clarify Psaki's initial comment about exerting executive privilege being inappropriate. They say Psaki was referring to a previous decision by the admin not to assert executive privilege in the committee's attempts to have former Justice Department officials testify about an attempt to oust then-acting AG Jeffrey Rosen. The admin believes strongly in the vital role this committee is playing and will continue to work closely with it moving forward. Jen was referring to the administration's previous decision not to assert executive privilege in the matter of certain former DOJ officials who've been called to testify before Congress. The administration official said, "The admin will determine any future questions of executive privilege involving documents and testimony on a case-by-case basis," as Jen noted. But you better believe that if Trump comes to office and he decides he wants to revoke executive privilege and release Biden documents from both the vice presidency and his presidency, that's going to be the most evil thing in the world. I know what they're doing here. It's a political witch hunt. This is a political enemy, and they're doing whatever they can to take down a political enemy. All right, let's keep going. One out of my neck of the woods here as we're out of here. Wisconsin Republicans take redistricting case to high court. From Scott Bauer. Wisconsin Republican state lawmakers on Friday asked the U.S. Supreme Court to dismiss a redistricting lawsuit brought by Democrats that asks a federal court to draw political boundary lines in the battleground state. The filing by attorneys representing the Republican-controlled legislature comes 2 days after the conservative-controlled Wisconsin Supreme Court said it would hear a similar case backed by the GOP. Republicans feel they have a better shot in the state Supreme Court, controlled 4-3 by conservatives, than they will in a federal court. Which federal district are they doing? Are they doing 4th? The case belongs in a state court and it's too early for such a case to be considered in federal court. Republicans said in Friday's filing asked the U.S. Supreme Court to dismiss the lawsuit. The lawsuit itself was filed on behalf of Wisconsin voters by the Democrat Party's lead attorney, Mark Elias, and a host of voting advocacy groups in the state. The panel of 3 federal judges considering the redistricting lawsuit previously declined to dismiss the case, and on Tuesday they wanted to conclude a trial by the end of January. Republicans on Thursday asked to put the case on hold, and the judges gave all the parties until October 1st to respond. All the legal maneuvering comes before the legislature has even introduced new maps for the congressional and legislative districts, let alone voted on one. And see, that's interesting about this. Republicans and Democrats alike expect whenever the GOP-controlled legislature passes will be vetoed by Tony Evers, and that's why they're asking the courts to get involved now. The last 3 times redistricting was done in Wisconsin under divided government. In 02, 92, and 82, a federal court drew the maps. If the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with the Republican and ends the federal lawsuit, that means Wisconsin Supreme Court could approve the final maps if the legislature and governor don't agree. Even in this politicized decisions from the nation's highest courts, the American people have the right to expect our federal courts to follow the law of the land and do not do the parochial bidding of one state's politics parties, said Sachin Shida, director of the Fair Elections Project. The Supreme Court should reject this partisan nonsense for what it is, an unveiled effort to rig the process in favor of one political party. And yes, and I do have to wonder which district they went to as well, because I'm curious as to see who the judge is and if they went judge shopping or not. But that does bother me. And yes, I do understand that in today's world, Tony Evers is going to block whatever the Republicans bring forward. Even if it's in his party's favor, he cannot hand Republicans a win, and it has to go out to a federal court. Even if it comes out massively in his favor, in his party's favor, he has to do it because he has to keep up pace off of this. But I'd at least like to see the proposal and have them vote on it first before it goes straight to the high court. Let's at least see what let's let them put their cards on the table and see what they have. Let's see if they're willing to work with Democrats in Congress. Let's see if we're able to get a big bipartisan redraw, which I know we won't. But let's actually see what's on the table. Let's see what's going there before we go reaching for daddy big government to come and do it for us. That's what we should be doing. Not just taking it right straight to the high court. Alright, and the last one we will do before we do a Ferengi rule of acquisition, because it is Monday, is this is from Scientific American. And I wanted to point, especially having just watched the prequel trilogy, why the term Jedi is problematic for describing programs that promote justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. From J.W. Hammond, Sarah E. Brownell, Nita A. Kedarnath, Susan J. Cheng, W. Carson Bird, on September 23rd, 2021. The acronym JEDI has become a popular term for branding academic committees and labeling STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine initiatives focused on social justice issue. Used in this context, JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. In recent years, the acronym has been employed by a growing number of prominent institutions and organizations, including the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. At first glance, JEDI may simply appear to be an elegant way to explicitly build justice into a more commonly formula of DEI, an abbreviation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, productively shifting our ethical focus in the process. JEDI has these 3 important affordances, but also inherits another notable set of meanings. It shares a name with the superheroic protagonists of the science fiction Star Wars franchise, the Jedi. Within the narrative world of Star Wars, to be a member of the Jedi is seemingly to be a paragon of goodness. a principled guardian of order and protector of the innocent. This set of pop cultural associations is one that some Jedi initiatives and advocates explicitly allude to. Whether intentionally or not, the labels we choose for our justice-oriented initiatives open them up to a broader universe of associations, branding them with meaning, and in the case of Jedi, binding them to consumer brands. Through the connections to Star Wars, the name Jedi can inadvertently associate our justice work with stories and stereotypes that are a galaxy far, far away from values of justice, equity, and diversity and inclusion. The question we must ask is whether the conversations started by these connections are the ones we want to have. As we will argue, the justice-oriented project should approach connections with the Jedi and Star Wars with great caution and perhaps even avoid the acronym Jedi entirely. Below, we outline 5 reasons why. And we've got a few of them here. The Jedi are appropriate mascots for social justice. This is the one that I wanted to touch on. But we also have Star Wars has a problematic cultural legacy. The space opera franchise has been critiqued for trafficking and injustices such as sexism, racism, and ableism. For example, the so-called slave Leia costume, infamous for stripping down and chaining up the movie series' first leading woman as part of an Orientalist subplot. So there's that. Jedi connects justice initiatives to corporate capital. That's product placement, so they're going to Disney. Aligning justice work with Star Wars risks threatening inclusion and a sense of belonging. The abbreviation Jedi can distract from justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So, I mean, it's all the we want to make it our own and not something that's big. But this is the big one that I wanted to talk about here. The Jedi are inappropriate mascots for social justice. Although they're ostensibly heroes within the Star Wars universe, the Jedi are inappropriate symbols for justice work. They're a religious order of intergalactic police monks prone to white saviorism and toxically masculine approaches to conflict resolution. Violent duels with phallic lightsabers, gaslighting by the means of Jedi mind tricks. The Jedi are also an exclusionary cult, membership to which is partly predicated on the possession of heightened psychic and physical abilities, or force sensitivity. Strikingly, force-wielding talents are narratively explained in Star Wars, not merely in spiritual terms, but also in ableist and eugenic ones. These are supernatural powers are naturalized as biological, hereditary, noble bloodlines, for example, the Skywalker dynasty. And force disparities are rendered innate physical properties measurable via midichlorian counts, not unlike force genetics test, and augmentable via humanoid engineering. The heroic Jedi are thus emblems for a host of dangerously reactionary values and assumptions, sending the message that justice work is akin to cosplay is bad enough, dressing up our initiatives in the symbolic garb of the Jedi is worse. They are white saviorists, you guys. And I do understand the fact that they're exclusionary, and it is a genetic thing. It's ableist, as they say off of here. But, I mean, they have toxic masculinity. They use phallic lightsabers to do aggressive negotiations. And they gaslight with the Jedi mind trick. You don't want to sell me ghost... No, not ghost sticks. What the fuck was it? You don't want to sell me death sticks. I don't want to sell you death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life. I'm going to go home and rethink my life. Scientific American, everybody. I hate this culture. I hate this time. I love this timeline sometimes, but I also hate this timeline. Alright. The last thing that we do on Monday is we read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. You know, we're going to go right from one franchise into the other. Let's get in here and let's see what they have to say. Where did we leave on? Never plays friendship above profit. Yep. Never plays friendship above profit is the 21st rule of acquisition. So we are moving on to the 22nd rule of acquisition. A wise man can hear profit in the wind. And I like this. So this comes from also the Rules of Acquisition episode, which I believe was the first one to feature Zach the Grand Negus. Let me double check on that. See if I'm correct on this. No, that's the one where they met Quark's. No, I'm sorry. It was the one where they had the woman who disguised herself as a man to go and earn profit. Quark's business partner is a female in disguise, and the revelation threatens to derail his trade talks in the Gamma Quadrant. So, okay, that's the one here. And they were quoting a lot of rules of acquisition on this one as well, including this one. But I want to focus on the actual rule of acquisition here, because a wise man can hear profit in the wind. And, I mean, of course, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to shamelessly plug the new website, TurnSomePagesProductions.com. Let's get that up here for you guys so we can see that, and the Gofundme as well. Bring that over here for you. Bring this one over here as well. So, and that's, you know, kind of where I'm looking at with this too, and what I've chose to do for the news here. You look out there and you go out, and not only do you find something you can sell, find some talent that you have that you can use to turn into profit at some point or another, but it's also important to look into things and find the niche market. I've looked into this and I've said there really isn't a place where people are getting their news from people who are just like them, people who get up and go to work every day. I mean, the only reason I'm not up out of my chair going to work right now is because my schedule has allowed me to have Mondays off so I can do the Red and Ed show. Or Ed's World as it once was, but that's how I have myself scheduled to do so. Because I took that over, because I was already doing the Monday show before I moved to the different location. But other than that, I have to get up and end the show by like 9 every day so I can get up and go to work. So I can eat breakfast, get up, and get out the door and go to work. And that's where people should be getting their money from. Now, that dude, like, we saw Joy Behar, we saw Anderson Cooper, we saw the idiots from Fox, the outnumbered crowd. They were in the video sell-off of this. These people aren't like us. They don't have to struggle, wonder what they're going to do. They don't have to wonder sometimes if they have to eat ramen or if they get to eat steak. They don't have to budget for anything. Wonder if they can afford to have a kid or anything else like that, because they're millionaires, all of them. I heard profit in the wind. I listened to this, I said, there's nobody on this market, so let's build something into this market. And I heard that a while ago. And I mean, you guys have paid me throughout the years. PayPal, Subscribestar, Buy Me a Coffee, lemons, all kinds of lemons. You guys have paid me well throughout the years. And I can hear the profit in the wind, because I know, and I've talked to some of you guys. You guys would rather hear me make fun of the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez puppy, or Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, man, or I'm Bernie Sanders and I need my pudding cup. You would rather hear me do this, but also focus on what's going to affect your budget. How are the policies going to affect your household? How is this going to affect the general society and your ability to practice your religion? How are all these going to affect you in the ways that actually work for you, in the things that you actually have to deal with? Not, well, the Republican caucuses are fighting together and we have to support the ones who want to go to war, or shit like that. The infighting, and Elaine pointed this out on Twitter the other day too, some of the infighting that goes on in the Libertarian Party, whereas we should be focusing on policy, not necessarily focusing on which caucus is the most powerful caucus and having the infighting there. And that's what I'm trying to do with Turn Some Pages, get some culture and some news for you guys from people who actually have to live with the same stuff that you guys have to live with. Whether you have to worry about a prescription price, or the budget, or the food, or if you have to move to go keep your job, or live in a better society, if your taxes are going to cause you to foreclose on your house. Stuff like that. And I hear profit in the wind, because that's a niche market. It's not there. Nobody has that yet. And it looks like Untyranny.com has also risen up alongside of me at almost the same time. So we're going to work together in alliance, because I'm friendly with Ortner and the people on his team. So hopefully we can do a very good alliance together and make these two websites grow into something where you people will walk away from your CNNs, your ABCs, your NBCs, and stuff like that, and come join our news site, where we can tell you, okay, this is how this is going to affect your bottom line. This is what's going to earn you money. This is what's going to lose you money. So yes, look for the niche markets, and yes, a wise man can find the niche market, find the product he has to sell, and he can hear profit in the wind. Or even a wise female, in the case of Quark's business partner. And that's going to be it for the day. So I think it's time for us to change up the track and head out of here for the day. What do you guys think? Let's get the track. Where's the track? There it is. Open that up and let's go. Alright, so thank you everybody for coming by and hanging out with me here today. I do hope to see all of you over on the Daily Ignoramus. If one of my mods could be so kind as to link that in the description, either in the DLive or the YouTube format, I would be incredibly grateful for you for doing so. I think that'd be awesome for the people who are on Twitch who lost access to Steven. Otherwise, we'll be back here later on today for the Red Net Show. That one looks like it's going to be good. John from the Porch Boys is joining me as we still await Elaine coming back, which her and I have been in talks, and I'm going to see what it is that she's going to be coming back, because I know she wants to come back and market for the Turn Some Pages group as well, so definitely looking forward to that. Otherwise, we'll be back here same time tomorrow. Well, hopefully a little bit earlier tomorrow, because I'll hopefully sleep tonight, but we'll be back here same time tomorrow for more of Contemporary. Until then, we will see you then. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Thanks, guys.